This morning's project is this 450. Y'all might recognize if you've been with the channel for a little while. This is my 6.0 to 7.3 swapped F450. That's the one we did the stacks on. And I've been having a rear end noise, or what I suspected was a driveline noise for some time. But it was a strange noise. Didn't sound like U-joints, didn't sound like hanger bearings, didn't really sound like axle bearings. But I would hear a little hum every now and then, or at speed, at cruising speed, it would vibrate a little bit. So I decided this morning I was going to just pull it down, do a little investigating, and then when I got into it, I thought it might be a good time for a video. So let me get under here and show you what we got. Okay, so I got under here and I checked U-joint slack. And let me get over here. I don't want to bug y'all with all of the hanger bearing was good, front U-joint was good. The issue that I had was there's about 1.5 inches of slack in the drive shaft. I have her in park right now, but there's about 1.5 inches of rotation in the drive shaft, almost the width of a cup basically, before either one of the wheels start to turn, and that's way too much slack. So what I ended up doing, I should have y'all on a tripod, but we're not gonna be long. So I pulled the drain and the fill on here, just showing you where these are. They're stamped fill and drain. So any of you guys that's done this before can kind of look at that and see how that looks more like water than anything. I've drained this whole pan, and I smell gear oil, but I haven't seen one thing that looks like gear oil. And I know these run on synthetic, so it's usually you know, a lot thinner than the old 80-90 weight gear oil. But anyhow, we're gonna take this bunch of water here, and we're gonna bring it over to the workbench, and we're gonna see if we got oil or water, and I'll show y'all how we're gonna do that. Alright, so we got a little science experiment just to show you guys. I mean, this is looking brown, but it's way too fluid for what I would think would be oil. So let me set you back up right here. Alright, what we have, what I'm going to use for this is this color cut water finding paste. So what it is, I use this to find water and diesel fuel, and it's a little paste that you smear on something. So we're going to put it on this screwdriver, and we're going to get it like that. I'll use my finger, but then I'm going to end up with red spots on me later today if what I think is going to happen happens. All right, let me clean this up. So what this paste does is it detects water and diesel fuel, or oils or whatever. So this is peanut butter brown color, and if you had a tank, be it a vehicle tank or a fuel tank, you could smear some of this on there, and you can dip it, and then it's going to turn purpley red. And if it only turns, you know, maybe 1 inch of that a purpley red, then you got 1 inch of water, because the water settles at the bottom of the tank. So first thing I'm going to do with this is just barely dip it in the water or oil, and you can see that we're already getting red. That's just even a 1/4 inch in. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go all the way to the bottom. Now if this rear end had just a little bit of water in it, it would just show, you know, if it had a 1/4 inch or 1 inch of water in this pan that settled down, then whatever was oil would still be brown, and whatever was water would not be. So let me pull this up here where you can see. So you can already tell, but I'm going to, where the water line is, the whole damn thing is that purpley pink color. So drop that off. So that means that everything that came out of that rear end, this whole entire pan, is basically water. And why it's not, you would think that if, you know, gear oil and water, it would, and you're driving it, it would emulsify and make a big old chocolate shake looking consistency, but for some reason this didn't. And I'm showing y'all this. Oh, I dropped my cap. I'll get it in a minute. So the reason I'm showing y'all this is, you know, people forget about the rear ends. And I bought this truck with a bad 6.0 motor to do a 7.3 swap into it and got all that done. But, you know, I wasn't driving it except for moving it around by the shop to do repairs on it. And so I really didn't even get into the rear end. And when I started test driving it, it was doing all right. But like I said, then I started hearing noise. Well, now we see that we've got, you know, probably a gallon of, we had a gallon of nothing but almost 100% water in that rear end. So when you guys are looking at trucks, and you know, the craze is these older trucks nowadays, don't forget to check the rear end oil. And you know, I have a habit. I'll look, and if I don't see a pinion seal leak or a wheel seal leak, then I'm assuming if nothing's leaking out, it's in there. But service your vehicle, drain this oil, check it out, screen it if you have to for shavings and whatnot. I didn't see any shavings, but I hadn't screened this out. I'm gonna pour it through a paint screen and see what we got. But basically, since we got water, I'm sure the rear end is toast. And I'm getting ready to go look at another rear end that I found online for this, and I will be draining the oil out of it before I buy it and screening it for shavings and water. Just, you know, because you're buying something sight unseen and it's not on a truck, so you can't test drive it and listen to it. So I'll get back to you guys when we figure out what we're going to do, but I wanted to show you this water test, and we'll get back to the rest of the whatever's involved in the rear end repair shortly. So check those rear diffs, guys. So in a rare moment of intellectual clarity, I remembered some of the story behind getting this truck, and I think I figured out what happened. So this is the back passenger side. This is the brake line splitter right there, and this tube that runs up toward the bed is the vent. It's the air vent for the rear end. Since this rear end had nothing but water in it, and I remember when the bed was off, reattaching, or I don't remember if I replaced this hose or reattached this hose to the vent line, but these trucks are all 20 years old on these 7.3s, so when these vent hoses get old and dry, they break right here. So if you go drive through a bunch of water, let me get a little closer in on that for y'all. If you drive through a bunch of water, water will go right into the rear end here, and it'll mix with the fluid, and then you get that milky, chocolate milk looking emulsion. But this one has nothing but straight water and no emulsification at all. So I'm thinking that back in the 6 months before I got this truck, there was a flash flood in that area, and I'd be willing to bet, I remember replacing this, and I bet the water got above this and got in this rear end. And of course, if water gets in there, oil floats on water, so it's just going to push it right out of the vent tube, and that's why we have zero oil in this rear end and nothing but water and no cloudy emulsion. So just a couple other things to check when you're dealing with these older trucks, and I didn't want to leave that out in case any of you guys are buying one. Or, you know, again, I usually look for oil around the rotors or, you know, the pinion. And so I've kind of gotten to the point where I assume that if I don't see oil leaking out of it, then there's oil in it. But that's kind of a jackass move, because sometimes if there's no oil out of it, there's no oil in it. Kind of like the Detroits. If there's no oil under it, there's no oil in it. Of course, that can kind of go with these 7.3s too. So anyway, that's a little bit about the vent tube, and that's what I think happened here. Water came in through the dislodged vent tube and pushed the oil out and just replaced it with solid water. All right, well, that's all for now. Thanks for watching, and we'll get back to this rear end when we get to the other rear end here, and diagnose it, make sure it's in good shape, and then we'll do a rear end swap. All right, we'll see you on the next one.